Hello, everyone. This is Trip, and today I'm joined by Sarey Conception because we have a fun little episode about the new film Sing Sing,
Mm.
and we just got to talk to Greg, the director, one of the actors, Sean. It's quite a conversation that you're about to hear. But Sarey, ever since we watched Sing Sing, we have been looking forward to this conversation and getting to tell people about it. So now that you've met Greg and Sean, what's going through your head?
That was really special. It just feels like what a gift for my day, honestly. Just to have those voices and I don't know. I just feel a little rattled by how sweet they are and just their filmmaking with such intention, especially being a filmmaker myself. It's so fucking hard to make a movie. Because you've made a movie too. And it's so much hard work, and then when you put it in this, business context, and you're dealing with all the business aspects of things, it could just make you so hard, and just the way that they are just creating light in the practice of storytelling, both in the content and also in the culture of, the team, is really moving to me, and really, really special. So yeah, I was really encouraged by
Yeah,
that. And he talked
for
about, when shot, you'll hear in the interview, but he talked about he literally said the divine energy that was on
hmm
set, and he's like, it sounds crazy to say, but it happened, so I can't say it any other way. And I was like, oh, I feel that.
yeah. Well, for those that haven't checked out the trailer for Sing Sing or seen it yet, the title plays off two ways. One, it's the name of a prison where
Mhm.
there's a theater group. It's based on a true story. Even some of the actual, like the actual people that are involved in the story, taking place in prison, are involved in the film, and it is a story about humanity. One of the things that really struck me is that you go in the story into the lives of these prisoners, and in a space that just being there comes with a label culturally, and it's one of the most human stories of kind of hope, transformation, what friendship and possibility looks like you could imagine. And I just so often, right, like a question like, oh, the prison industrial complex, or how do we do restorative justice, and these kinds of things show up as like policy questions, or sometimes there are prejudices that come out in it, and these kinds of things. But one of the thing the story of the film does is give a kind of texture to these true stories where it would seem inhuman to deny the possibilities in these people's lives and the power of community that recognize the dignity of the people in front of them. And so, movie about a jail, Sing Sing, is also about the ability for an individual soul to find the ability to sing again. And if you're going to call a movie like an Easter movie, this would be one of them.
I mean, it's also the people who are most easy to forget, because that's why prisons are built, right? To help you forget people, and a lot of movies that have the URL to a nonprofit at the end, you feel like you've just been preached to for a couple hours, or something hit over the head with a message or anything. But in this film, you're caught up in the storytelling and caught up in the characters. And then it hits you at the end, and there's if you want to learn more about this organization, and you're like, can't grab your phone fast enough. Take my money, please. It speaks to also the ability of the arts to help grown-ups, everyone, but especially grown-ups who need it most, rediscover a sense of play and vulnerability in play, where you're you're taking off masks, and the things you've done to cover up your more vulnerable parts have to kind of come to the foreground. And the way that the arts have the ability to do that and draw that side of grown-ups who have learned to be another way is really meaningful. And like you said, the power of friendship is really strong in this, and you remember how important it is to have friends who love you even when you're an asshole to them. Uh, it's just a salvific thing in real life. for sure.
Well, as a filmmaker,
Yeah.
watching the film and then getting to meet some of the people that were a part of it
Mm.
and hear more of the story, is there something, as people are about to hear from Greg and Sean, that you would go like, oh, if you've had this experience before, I'd like to underline this or put this in bold?
If I've had the experience of what? I'm
Or
sorry.
like your experience as a filmmaker. I knew we both loved the film after we watched it, but then getting to hear about the process,
Mhm.
hearing the creation process, the way they relate to each other and the whole crew and that dynamic, is there something that maybe if you weren't a filmmaker or maybe hadn't been in that context of like creating art and community and things, that you'd want to go, oh, listen to this.
Yeah.
Like, this gets you jazzed? Because I'm not exactly sure how the video gets edited, but there are quite a few times you would have thought Sarey was at a revival while someone was answering questions about the business side
I had to throw my
of
hands up
filmmaking.
a couple of times. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I got so stoked about this financial model for the film because it is so contrary to filmmaking culture. And just living, if you go and live in Hollywood, you can sense the hierarchies in every room. Like you just walk in and you size yourself up and you're like, okay, who's got the coolest job or the most influential job? Okay, I'm like number 4 in this room, you know? And it changes how you operate and perform. And it pushes everyone into like it it pushes you into, yeah, just a performing in not a good way, not performing your best self or who you truly are, but how to climb this ladder or get approval from those above you. And, that's just our natural human psychological way of being. So, I mean, Sean's explanation of how this influenced the making of the film is so powerful. And I wasn't even thinking about that initially. I was just like, yeah, dude, this is a cool fuck you to the system to say, hey, you know what? Everyone's getting paid the same rate. And they had to go to the lead actor, who's usually like the person who's like at the top, of the payroll, and say, hey, are you cool with this? And he had to agree to it. And how cool that he said yes, because he wants to be like, yeah, screw the Hollywood system. Let's do it this way. It's more fair. But I wasn't even thinking about the way that it might influence the quality of a film until that conversation, which is so true. If you are expected to go into a room and be vulnerable and spill your guts and take risks where you're asked to pretend you're in a situation that's not real, you're playing pretend, and you're exposing the way you might cry if you are in this situation, or the faces you might make, or the things you might say, like there's improv and stuff. And it's such a vulnerable thing. It's such a vulnerable thing to act. If you are in a room full of people where the culture of equality is fostered, you're going to be able to do that a lot easier. It reminds me of when I took some improv classes because I just wanted to like jog my creativity and get more into like my instinct, my sense of instinct and not overthinking things, get more in my gut and not in my brain. And the reason I could go into improv class and act like a fool and do whatever stupid exercise they asked me to do is because I knew everyone else had to do it too. And no one
Yeah.
else in the room had a chance to practice ahead of time. We were all being asked the same thing and it was equal ground, and then I could do it. It makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But really, guys, support Sing Sing because, like, it's hard to make a movie, and
Oh yeah.
most movies don't make their money back. It's not like 70% or 60%. It's like 98% of movies don't make their. It's really sad. So go and support good ones so that they can keep making good ones.
Mm-hmm. And who knows? Maybe Robert Downey Jr. would like that same economic pay structure for the upcoming Avenger movies.
Can you
Maybe he and the
imagine?
Russo brothers are
Oh,
going to be like,
man.
well, we have this idea.
That would be a huge, huge upset.
Yeah. Then Hollywood would think he really was Dr. Doom.
Dang.
One of the things that might be a fun place to start just in Sarey and I's conversation after watching the film, because both of us have spent a lot of time. I was in theater from middle school on through college and was like a theater major and philosophy major, and then That's what you end up doing all my graduate degrees on. And Sarey has that humanities connected to art, creation, and film. And the thing that kind of seizes you immediately is that that Sing Sing is about the power of art, storytelling, and theater, and the humanity jumping out of it. So I'm interested, since that is your vocation, and then seeing just the power of it in this different setting, in this real true story. Like, when in starting to hear the story and working on the project, did the kind of lifelong passion of storytelling and creation get connected to the narrative in Sing Sing?
When I first read the source material, the article that this is partially based on over 8 years ago, it was this such a marvel that this even happened of it. This play, this time traveling musical comedy called Breaking the Mummy's Code, against all odds, was put on inside Sing Sing, one of the most infamous prisons in the world, you know? And when I first read it, it spoke to the child in me when I was first discovering art. It felt like that was what was happening for the men that were in that program. It was a childlike, not trivializing it. Actually, maybe its most pure encounter with art, where it's not being censored or judged or weighed against or compared to anything else. It was the joy of the work and the process. And I wanted to feel that way again. I wanted to put aside all the times I've had my heart broken by this business. And I say business, that's the part that's heartbreaking. The art has never really broken my heart. It's only healed it and made it bigger. But the business has broken it quite often. And it just reminded me of the spirit of that.
And then you went and you volunteered with RTA to prepare for making this film. Is that accurate? And how did that sort of change how you thought about making the film, or how did that experience open up the story for you?
I mean, the story and the process was constantly evolving and alive and teaching us lessons. And so at the very beginning of the journey, we were more traditionally assessing this as a movie. It was like, let's do our research. We've always pretty exhaustively researched the things that we've made movies about, in the world. Never really in a transactional way. It was always very conscious to try and be listeners first, to really honor the communities that we were working within. But still, we would travel in and then we'd step out and we'd go make a movie, based on what we learned. And that couldn't be further from where we were brought to in the end, which was really, working ever so closely to mirroring how the program actually works, which is a truly community driven, enterprise. And it was a process of opening our circle up year by year that, yes, was partially awoken when Clint and I became teachers ourselves inside the program. It was awoken through conversations with many of the men that now star in this film, like Divine I and Divine G. Brent, the real theater teacher, was wrapped into that experience with us. And then a very notable shift to actually seeing that we could make it when Coleman Domingo entered that circle and planted his flag on the ground and brought his spirit to this, that we kind of really sort of took flight and led us to the moment of actually getting to make it. And I don't know why he was like, I don't know, maybe I should bring my friend Sean on this. And we were like, we fought him every step of the way. We were like, no, anyone but Sean. But he
That's
was
how it went.
relentless. That's not true to the listeners out there. We're all laughing here because it was actually a lot more meaningful than that. But that was an example of widening the circle, of Coleman being like, I'm going into a place I've never gone as an artist, that I'm going to be dancing with all my history of stage and film and TV experience into a place with men who are really from this world, who have lived these things. And I need something. I don't know what I need. I just need something. It's like, you know what? I think I actually need a friend. And he was like, there's this role of Mike that we had written and was important to the script, but at the time was like more of a shell. And he's like, we meet Sean San Jose is the best actor I know. And he's my best friend as a nice byproduct. We've known each other for over 30 years. And Sean came on, and from the first conversation, that character was not just important to the movie, it became essential, and he filled it and he brought it to life in a way that now the movie could not function or exist without what he brought to the story.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I mean, like, trip to chance to ask a question, but to me, at the center of the film really feels like that sort of that perceived tension between like vulnerability and masculinity, and the way that real true friendship, where the masks sort of melt off, is like salvific. It's the most powerful thing. And it's just the soul of the film. So I guess that's not a question. It's just a comment. I just feel like that tension, that perceived tension between that vulnerability and friendship and masculinity is really present there. And how you handled that, I thought was really, really lovely.
Well, I'd love to hear what got you to say yes, Sean, and then what you didn't anticipate that you discovered in the process of getting to know the story, the script, and then sharing this story broadly on film.
It's very nice to be here, even virtually here, and I love hearing Greg talk. I just to start off, this isn't really answering the question, but just to respond to what you're saying about both the notion of storytelling in general, and I like that word storytelling as opposed to more specifically theater or film even. I think, especially in this case, because that feels like the essence of what everyone working on this got to was a place of storytelling. And I think what that requires of us each individually. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take a lot to get me interested in it. I was very interested in it from the topic on down, and very much the way of the process that Greg and his partner in film, Clint Bentley, and along with this project with Monique Walton work is, it's about crafting a room of people, which I think is, sounds on the surface like, yeah, of course you'd want collaborators, you need collaborators, but it's much more organic than all that. And it really does go to that word that you all use, which is storytelling. Like, how do you gather a room of people that are going to jump in to the ocean of the storytelling in the same direction together? And I think that does a lot. I mean, the first part that was so great about it is that for me, that Coleman Domingo was interested in. Coleman, as stated, is a lifelong friend of mine, but also a collaborative partner for many years. So I respect, I trust, I am inspired by all of his choices. He has a mind that doesn't stop and is fueled by his soul to tell these stories. So I was really thrilled when he said, read this. And I did. And then the script is everything. I mean, the script is very close in certain deep foundational ways as to what hopefully people experience. And it's a story less about storytelling, but what we need to do within our souls and in our shells to tell stories. And most of those stories in this are about ourselves. I mean, the whole reason that I myself do the work that I do, I'm lucky enough to do this for so many years, is that I found these rooms where storytelling can exist. And I think seems simple. Again, it's a little deceptive on the surface. Oh, storytelling, that's neat. It's like a library or something like that. No, it's much more about like a way inside of yourself. And the more that you can get inside of yourself, the more you can see the rest of the world. And if I didn't have rooms to do storytelling in, it sounds very dramatic, but I really don't know how I would exist. I don't know how I would be alive. I don't mean that maybe I wouldn't be physically alive, but I would be empty up here, and I certainly wouldn't be touched inside here. And you get that from being in rooms with people where not only do you hear things that remind you that you all are in the same world together, but then it allows you to then do something. For a person like me, I grew up in a large family run by immigrant women and man of color before that term, but certainly with all the component pieces as in growing up, which is to say emotions, sharing, difficulties, messiness. That wasn't on the surface. That wasn't a part of the directions. That wasn't in your instructions of how to exist. So I went through maybe the first 18 years of my life thinking that you don't even talk. You know what I mean? Like you don't even share. And the feelings that you have are probably a problem and that secrets should be hidden. I come from Filipino people, and the Filipino people in my upbringing, secrets are precious. Secrets are family. Secrets exist in that room, and they exist in a box, and even inside of the family, there are boxes inside of the boxes. And as a child, you're not going to touch that. So you kind of don't know a lot of shit, and that's not the same as not being loved. I was very loved. I just felt like a very unevolved human being. Then I walk into these theater rooms, and the only instructions are try and be honest and try and tell the story. And I think I tell that long, sorry story because it's the same thing that's not only kept Coleman and I together as best friends, but also as collaborative partners. But it's the same seed that Greg and Clint put in that script. That script isn't about sing the monstrous, dehumanizing institution. It's about sing, like Greg had said at one point, sing. So let your soul sing. It's about people trying to learn how to sing to each other, to speak to each other. And that was that's where the supernatural, that's where faith, belief gets brought into these projects. You go, how do I get into a room like this? And how do these tools that I need and use are actually the ones in play here? And so that's what it felt like the whole entire time, from being told to read the script by Coleman to reading it, and then meeting with Greg and Clint that very first time.
Greg, you mentioned the experience of teaching in the program and then going to tell its story. And I wonder if that kind of dynamism that Sean just shared about in a group of people wrestling with a story and bringing honesty, what was that like? What did you see? How did you see that play out working in the program where you go, yeah, this is what I need to capture in the film to really communicate that power? Because whatever it was that happened, I couldn't imagine someone with a semi-open soul not being moved by the story. And hearing you working at program, I imagine there's something there that you go, oh, well, like this is the spice, or like to get this flavor. And I wonder if, when you think of that experience, what was it you're trying to get this group of actors to bring out?
Yeah. So Clint and I initially, as part of our process, it felt very natural to us to step into the program and to volunteer as a means of learning and listening. But when we came in, we didn't want it to be transactional, that we were just here to extract things to put into a script. What did we have to offer? And so it came down to the structure of the class that we taught. We decided to do a film acting workshop, which had never been done before in the program. And we were working in a facility at the maximum security prison called Greenhaven, which is in upstate New York as well. It's a very dark place. It sounds nice. The title sounds nice. The reality couldn't be further from it. It was a place that at one point was a POW camp, and it was built into a hillside. And the way the system of walls were constructed, when you are incarcerated at Greenhaven, you will never see the horizon again until you come home. And from the time that we would park to the classroom we taught in could take somewhere from an hour and a half of security gates and clearances to get there. And each successive gate that closes behind you rattles into your bones in a way. It brings about a very visceral fear of that entrapment, that we were sampling from, but so many around us were living, but leaves a mark. 1 second in there leaves a permanent mark, and I had nightmares for a long time from teaching, of just like being stuck in the bottom of a well or trapped in a cave, like weird nightmares like that. But yet, when you got to where we taught, you cross a threshold into this classroom, and it is literally the sensation of like going from black and white to color. And it's not the decor of the room that we were in. It was the people in the room, and they were so present. And I don't mean that word lightly. To actually be present is probably the hardest thing a human can truly do, and the challenge that issued from that is saying, hey, meet me where I am right now and nowhere else, not my past or not where I can be, but here and now. And can we share something together? And this curiosity, this desire for connection was there. And the scary thing was the expectation that we would bring that ourselves, that we would be as available and present, as the men that we were working with. And once you did, though, just how liberating and good it feels to actually just be, and not be pretending.
Mm-hmm.
And the class that we taught, we picked several seminal movie scenes, and our class could select the films they wanted to perform a scene from, and we would treat it like we were really on a set, and we would do the read in the hotel room the night before and look at the work and say, okay, what is this character going for? What's underneath it? What else can we find? What do we want to play with? And then we would shoot our scene and do the master wide shot, and we would have a little crew, but you couldn't bring in any equipment into the space, like any phones or cameras or technology. And so we had to use our imagination. So our cinematographer was using a prison ID card as the lens, and our boom op was using a cane, from a volunteer as the boom op, more just to create the sensation that a crew was there. It was really truly about the performance and the actors running the scene, whether it's from, on the waterfront, I could have been a contender, to 12 Angry Men, to Saving Private Ryan or whatever. And they would do the wide was meant to be on book, from the script. And we would do it. And then the interesting started to happen is like, as we moved into a close up, the point was at this moment, bring some of yourself to this scene, riff, zigzag, whatever, but just probe somewhere deeper, And one of the scenes we did was from Dead Poets Society. We did the Carpe Diem scene. And Professor Keating was, asking his class, what does Carpe Diem means? And that played by Robin Williams in the movie. And our Professor Keating was going to ask this question. And I was like canvassing our class that were there were some who, when we were on book, had the lines and all that, but there was another man in the group named Pete Rock who was very happy to be an extra and hide in the back. Did not want the focus on him in any way, but you sensed something was going on, in the context of the scene. And I just whispered to our Professor Keating, I was like, ask Pete Rock what Carpe Diem means, and don't stop asking why until something happens, And so he asked, class, Carpe Diem, what does it mean? And he was like, Pete Rock. And all of a sudden you see Pete Rock just shrink, and try to hide and become invisible. And he's like, what does Carpe Diem mean? And at first it was just like lots of platitudes, just like, living ain't cheap and whatever, and he just kind of kept this artifice up. But Professor Keating kept saying, what does it mean? what does it mean? What does it mean? Until finally Pete was like, I can't answer that because I'm too afraid to look what's inside that question. And all of a sudden it was just like this sort of shockwave through the whole room, that hair standing up on your arms feeling. And one of the men in the group named Monsieur Mills stepped in the room and was like, "Can I just say something? It feels like Christmas in here." And then
Oh,
and then he sat down. But like, just that was what we chased. We chased the marriage of what text can open up, but what paying attention and listening to each other and creating a space where someone can actually bring forth what the question really surfaces into the space.
so good. I'm so interested in, you talked about how in the beginning, like, like art's never the art's never broken your heart. The story's never broke your heart, none in that way, but the business has. And I was so interested to read about the things you did with the creating parody on set, with the financial structure of the film and the way everyone was paid equal rates. And, you know, a lot of people listening to this probably don't know how unusual that is. Like, that's a very, very strange arrangement. But my question is how there's probably a lot of ways that this film set maybe felt a little different than other film sets, but I'm just interested to know how that transparency and parity with the way everyone was being compensated for their time and energy changed the culture on set and the making of the film.
I can speak as someone that, was new to it and gifted it. And that's what it really is a gift. This is a model that, Greg and Clint have used before. And absolutely, to your point, this is not typical. It is not usual. And yet it is very possible. And yet the dividends are immense. And the dividends for me is, for sure, does that feel like a greater transactional thing to have it not be so starkly hierarchical when you enter into a thing, and that the business end isn't so stark and steeply defined, but rather it's a continuation of the ethos and the belief that the team has when they enter. When I talked about them crafting organically a room, that's part of it. Those are the roots of it. Those are the seeds of it. And they follow through from that idea all the way to what we try and pursue in the storytelling. Without sounding too precious about it, it really is a gift. You just have to think about it in this way. What will make you feel better about yourself when you walk into a room, when the room is requiring you to reveal yourself, to open up yourself, to gift
Wow.
yourself? If the step before you walk into the room is the people in charge of it tell you, we want you to be here. We want you to be here so much that we want to even out the room in as much way as possible. And that sounds cool. And I come from theater. In theater, you kind of naturally have to make it a circle, but you don't really have to continue the circle. At the end of the day, they who speak the loudest may be the ones that, that win the day. But here, they said this in a meeting. I can remember it very clearly when I was speaking with Monique, the producer, and said, "Hey, we're going to shoot 5 days a week." And already I went, "Really? We only have 18 days for real. We're not going to grind. And they're 8-hour days for real. So we're not going to say, okay." And then said, and here's the other part of this unique structure. And they explained the structure, the equitable approach to it. Now that is just, it's incredible, because it's the difference between someone saying like, "You here for a job, work," or "You're here for our work, let's do this." And that energetically changes the whole thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you walk in the room and then it's met with, whether it's Pat Scola, who's working this beautiful cinematography, not sort of barking orders to what he wants his shot to be, but what are you going to do? How's it going to look? And Greg from above, quote unquote, as the director, going, what are we going to do in the scene? What feels right in the scene? And then you match that with the gift of having our real leader in the room, which is Coleman Domingo, not as just the main storyteller, but as the soul of the room coming in. And I don't know another way. I've tried to describe it, but I don't know another way to describe it other than entering the room with a sense of divinity and giving that divinity into the room. Therefore, it lands on you. Now, what more could make your work better? I don't know the room that is going to make me want to reveal myself when I'm being touched and gifted upon entry to the room. And I think those are the things that, again, I'm aware of how precious it sounds, but it really, really happened. Those are the component parts of what people may be receiving when they say, man, I felt so deeply. It's because people felt so deeply going into it, not just because it was a true story, but because it was a true experience in telling the story, if that makes sense. I think the notion of the evil prison industrial complex certainly was on our mind. And how do we humanize that? Certainly was on our mind. But in the room, that's not the story we were telling. The story we were telling was trying to peel away, like I talk about those boxes in my family, peel away those boxes inside of you to touch on something new and share it with someone else. And when the people making it give you a piece of themselves and give you a literal piece of the project before you enter the room, you can only but feel that much larger and more capable of doing things that you never thought you were capable of doing. And it's really special. It's really rare. And this is why I get on the phone with Clint and Greg and Monique every week now. And it's not like, where are we going on tour with the thing? How are you doing? What's happening with your spirit this week? What are we going to do next? Because of that energy is the long ride. That's the trajectory. We did this project and it feels very special and it feels very pure, but it's that gift. And that's when people go like, oh, that's a neat model. It's a neat model. It's an effective model. It's a financially more balanced model, but it's an equalizing model in a real energetic way. And if you don't have, I'm a believer because I come from theater. If you don't have good energy in the room, you're going to have a real hard struggle telling a really deep story. And so what amazing gifts to walk into the room before you even have to get down to doing the work of it.
So powerful and meaningful the way you said about how you expect to be so vulnerable as an artist in these settings, but then you walk into a space, that question of what would make me comfortable to like pour my guts out in a room, not a room where I'm like have to identify where I'm at in the hierarchy in space. Like that's so true. So
I mean,
true.
it's just to say too, it's cool because it, for me at least, it immediately transcends even the financial structure of it. And, I'm not going to front, like the financial structure is
Imagine
cool.
that doing something like
Yeah.
this.
But then you go like, well, what does that mean I can do with my work and my vessel to do the work? That's when it gets like, really, you're in new ground. You're like, wow, that's very special.
And oh wow, when people are treated well, then you might actually end up with a better movie.
For
How about
real,
that?
right? Yeah.
I know
It's not an accident.
we gotta wrap it up on time, but Greg, in this space that you're walking into where you're like going to film festivals and there's awards and there's like, you're very much going to be in the business in this distribution time and this promotion time and stuff. What are some like ways that you protect yourself from giving into that cynicism and protect that, that sense of wonder about storytelling in your own self?
Honestly, it's not something you could probably survive alone, because it can really grind you out, especially if there's not people that see you, that care for you, that honor you, that support you. It can probably this kind of game, this promotional game, can poison you, I think. And I honestly, one of the guy that's on the call with us right now, Sean, is what he was just saying. Like every week he is asking how the box office is going. He's asking how my heart is, how my creative soul is. He's encouraging me to get back to work and to create, and he's not alone in that, that it really is the community that is leaning on each other right now. And it's part of what makes it also really a joy to continue to give oxygen to the story and to be on the road with it is because that's who you're in the room with, and so it's a life-giving experience for all of us, and what can likely turn into, a soul-sucking one maybe for others.
That's beautiful.
Love it.
Well, thank y'all for taking the time to talk to us. The movie is so human, and it makes human people that we're so tempted to inscribe a story where they're just a problem onto them, and their humanity's told in a powerful way in it. And then to hear the story of keeping the humanity of creation and storytelling there, just in how you structured it, and seeing the genuine friendship and kind of encouraging spirit y'all have with each other, just getting to hear you, it makes sense why I love the movie so much. And I'm pumped to tell people about it. And I have had zero complaints when I tell people, go watch the movie. If you don't like it, I'll buy you the ticket and your next movie ticket. And then I'll probably pray for you, because when humans don't respond to Sing Sing, then they got some other issues. So yeah, I really appreciate it. This has been it's been a blast to get to talk to you both.
Okay.
Thanks, y'all. It was a pleasure.
Thank you both.
Awesome.
That was
Thanks.
great.